Doing this thing. So, hello and good morning, everybody. This is Stuart Little. This is the Idea Factory, and today we are going along a slightly different tech. We have what I'm calling LinkedIn stories that I'm bringing to you guys. And today I'm joined by Mel Tyro, who is somebody that I've met through the wonder of LinkedIn and using that platform to engage with different people. But we have a mutual connection, and I think that sometimes helps when you're kind of looking at different perspectives and how people are. But we kind of came together with over the conversations with a guy called Graham Hawkins, who's from a business called Sales Tribe. Now, I've kind of had some workings with Graham over a long period of time, but Mel, it's a pleasure to have you with us. So do you want to sort of introduce yourself and kind of what you're doing?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Stu. I really appreciate you having me on board. So I have been working in B2B sales for most of my career, but had a business from home. As a result of COVID, the 26th of March came about and I was made redundant from an enterprise manager role. And so that's sort of where I've sort of leveraged from there, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that when we initially met, I saw your video, and it was a video of you being really candid about your current situation and where you were at. And I think that the thing that struck me about that was, although you were being really honest, you were super positive about where things were going for you. Everyone's gone through testing times right now. Certainly, I know that feeling too. But it's a case of how you've managed to change it. And I think it's fair to say that you've stepped outside your comfort zone. Would you be right in saying that?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think, I'm in my mid-40s. You don't get to mid-40s without quite a few knocks in life and quite a few different experiences. And COVID, obviously for all of us came out of the blue, and none of us knew what to expect. None of us still know what to expect in some ways. But every single step in my journey in my life, I've felt that there's two ways to approach it. One is to go, this is killing me, this is hurting me, this is pushing me down, and the other is to go, well, there's certain things about this I can't change, but what can I change? So I looked at the whole concept of really the world over, but in my region in Australia, there's a lot of people facing unemployment as a result of this, and there's going to be high competitiveness for positions. So I was sitting there thinking, well, what's going to be my difference in this highly competitive market? How am I going to protect my family and be able to support them, given that we don't know the longevity of this scenario and how it will affect all of our lives. So for me, it was about not having any choice but to adapt. So I, having had met the guys from Sales Tribe last October, I'd sort of had a few ideas around some of that modern selling technique, and I chose to apply that to my own personal brand. And given that I'd sort of established myself on LinkedIn as a platform, and an international platform which has really got unlimited reach, I decided to use that platform to my advantage, given that I perceive that platform as essentially my business, even if I'm not representing another organisation. So that's taken me a long time professionally to build that connectivity on LinkedIn. But I've done it through my personal business, through working for other organisations, and it's just become something that has helped me to step outside that comfort zone and use it as a platform to show that, I'm unemployed, yes, that's right, but I'm not embarrassed about that. This is a part of the situation that's going on right at the moment, and this is who I am, and this is what I'm going through. And if that can help someone else, then that's awesome too, because obviously there's a high percentage of people who are facing the similar situation.
Absolutely. I think that the key point that you've made there, and I love this, is that you've said that you've kind of used this, you've used the LinkedIn space as a space for you, you obviously, if you're with an employer, you're validating them for the time you're there, and it's kind of like that that tenure moment of working with the business, and you're supporting them, and you're using whatever it is, the end game that they require. But what I love about it is that fundamentally it's about you, and it's about building a brand that people can relate to. You've had good success in that, though. You've built quite a substantial base, right?
Look, it sort of all really emanated around about 4 years ago. I was working for a not-for-profit organisation in sales and marketing, and I had a $15,000 sales budget. Marketing budget per annum. So there's not a lot to squeeze out of that. So I was taught to think laterally from an early age from my parents, which has been a great endowment from them. And I just thought, okay, what do I do, and how do I maximize this reach for this organization? And I did some reading on LinkedIn, and then started to work with that. So built up as much of a network as I possibly could from there. But as I said earlier, it wasn't until I met and sort of had an encounter with Sales Tribe through a growth summit from my former organization that I was actually able to recognize and realize how that could potentially be harnessed and maximised and utilised, and then actually put into practical application for, really establishing that voice and that digital footprint.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this is, again, what I love is the fact that you're building that goes with you. So the people often think that, they're defined by their role, and it's almost locked into that. And you're a great example of someone who's actually now in a position of real strength as a result. Now, getting on to the Sales Tribe stuff, I know that you were fortunate enough to be part of a course. I think that Graham ran, I think that we discussed that, but also you've gone on to do some subsequent training with those guys, and kind of more focused on their current work and on what's happening. I know I think we're both big fans of this particular book, and using this regularly, right? We flick through this; it's got some great info in it. But the point here is, the learning's growing and changing all the time. How are you adapting to that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Stuart. The self-education side to me was a part of, how I could improve myself, how I could upskill, how I could, leverage from there, become a more attractive future employee, essentially. And that's all fed into a whole lot of self-development, which is just an amazing byproduct, really. But, when I thought about the course of my sales career, I thought, what's the best training I've ever had? Or what's the best impact that I've ever had as a person in a sales position? And apart from my own imprint upon that, because I'm not the sort of charismatic type salesperson, dog eat dog, I'm a more relationship builder type person. So I had to think about what actually occurred for me, and what sort of pennies dropped when I actually had that encounter with Sales Tribe in October last year. And the effects of that were so profound in my life that I sort of wanted to pursue a little bit more understanding around that. So what was really great about the fact that I made my redundancy public on LinkedIn was that so many people reached out to me, and two of those people were also Graham and Bevan from Sales Tribe. And it just was amazing, because they basically also became mentors to me, and have done, which is just awesome, and just another sort of indication of how they support people in that sales environment. But, they also mentioned that they had the Sales Success with Social Media program that they had up and running on their website now. So I just immediately switched on and went, this is something that I have to do. So, I sort of got in there, couldn't put it down. In conjunction with that, I went ahead and read the book that Graham has written, and I just couldn't believe it. 4 to 5 years ago he wrote this book, and this is all what is actually happening now in real time, and has been accelerated by the incidence of COVID, I guess. I identified that there's a strength in social media a while ago. It was cemented when I understood that further in October last year with the introduction to Sales Tribe. And, now having done the course, read the book, I understand that it's got direct application, not only to my personal brand, but also to whatever future company align with. It's so focused on this future, which is now of the sales, which is a customer-led era, and it's part of this modern sales journey that we all really need to be on if we want to be in sales in this time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's the point of being relevant, isn't it? And kind of as the position changed, and this situation was obviously very quick in respect of people having to respond with various lockdowns and the guidelines that we've all had to follow. But even so, we've all learned at rapid rates, and I think some of us have taken to that easier than others in respect of being prepared for it. But not to say that it's necessarily an arduous process either. I mean, in many respects, it's just I look at this as an addition to the kit bag that most salespeople will have anyway of their ways and means of working, and it just enhances that significantly. I think it allows you to be always present to that customer, and I'm a big fan of these things, like having the presence that works for you over a sustained period of time. So you're kind of educating the entire way. So, like yourself, your profile is everything in respect of actually being the thing that talks the most about you and how you can add value to your customer in the end conversation. But
that's exactly right. And, I thought since October, I'd sort of built up that, I'd been attempting to build up that credibility with the audience that, was in my connection base. And through becoming redundant, I thought, well, what value can I add to this community? How can I be useful during this time? Because I think for me, just personally, I can't stand not being useful. And I think that's just something that, falls upon you when you become redundant. You no longer have that contribution to an organisation, and you spend a whole lot of time, in that organisation, with so much energy spent there as well. And when it's just taken away from you so suddenly, because I'd never been made redundant before, and it's just a complete exit that day. You don't have any time to close off. You don't have any time to say your goodbyes properly. And I just said, I just wanted to make this shift and try and make sure that, give myself time to go through those processes, which everyone has to. And even to this day, there's still things that tick along in my mind. But one of the other things that I was going to mention too that I've also engaged with, and this was actually a tip off from one of the connections in my LinkedIn channel, was a course by Yale that I've actually just completed this morning, which has been great. Called The Science of Wellbeing, and I would totally recommend it. It's a completely free course, and it's just amazing. It really it's over the course of 10 weeks, but you can fast track that, and it goes through everything to do with what will make you flourish as a human being. So it actually gets down to the core of what makes you happy, and it talks about hedonic adaptation, which I had no idea about before, but do now. I won't go into the details, but you get to do an authentic happiness survey. You get to assess the pillars of well-being. You get to do a signature strengths assessment, and you learn and are reminded about things like gratitude and meditation and sleep. And what I have found through doing this course is that it's also enhanced that core positivity that you were talking about earlier, and you can't generate that on your own all the time. And so, doing both the Sales Tribe course and also doing the Science of Wellbeing has just given me that extra, external, a filling of my cup, I guess you could say, which has really buoyed me through this time. When I've got 2 teenage boys currently in their room studying, and coming out every 5 seconds for snacks, and there's constant interruptions. There's such a change because you're away from your physical networks, which inject so much of that drug of oxytocin that we all need to actually remain happy in balance. So, that external injection, as much as what I've done personally, has just been key for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think how you describe that, you can tell that immediately you're getting that. It's rounding out a much richer experience for you. But I think ultimately this pays off in the way that you engage with people going forward. I think that that it just adds different elements to the story of what you're able to actually discuss with potential customers further down the line, whichever route that you want to take, in your career. So, and I think that this is a general observation, right? Education's a great thing. Understand where you put your time, but I like the fact that this is kind of very harmonious kind of setup in what you've done with Sales Tribe and any previous work. This just seems to be an extension of that, which is just more rounding. It rounds you as a human, and I think that at the end of the day, that's a good thing. Also, it sounds like you've got an awesome amount of content you can share with other people via the channel that you've got. So, wow, I look forward to seeing some of the articles.
Oh, look, I think, our natural state of mind is being negative, I think, most of the time. And there's actually a book written about it. I can't remember what it's called at the moment, but, we have to force ourselves to be positive through difficult times. And I've certainly, struggled with that over the years. I can definitely say hands down, that's been a difficult thing. But it's amazing when you have that positive energy, what you put out comes back. So, even just touching on what you said there, I've had a few people from a few different industries in that context of the, my contacts who have reached out to me and asked for a little bit of advice on certain things. And, you are absolutely right. What I have done and what I've put my time and energy into, these studying and opening up my mind further to expand myself and what I have to offer has actually already become useful. It's becoming useful in my relationships with my children, with family relationships, friend relationships, and so, I do feel like it's building up that resourcefulness in myself and that ability to connect on a greater level. So, I feel really blessed actually that, all the stars have somehow aligned and as far as, I know how horrible it feels to be made redundant, but I just feel so lucky that it happened in so many ways, because all of a sudden it's been a launching point for me to move in a totally different direction in a lot of ways.
That's really interesting observation. I think that I've seen a lot of people talking also to that exact subject, but saying, what are you rushing back to? This has given people such a perhaps an extended period of time where they've actually looked at their value stack and they've been able to really reflect internally about what's important to people. And prior to all of this, maybe a lot of people were caught up in genuine hustle and bustle of what turned to be busy day-to-day life, and they just swept along with that. Whereas this kind of as much as it's an enforced kind of reset for many people, what it's allowing is this opportunity to actually understand, well, what's important to me and how can I make things happen? I mean, obviously there are still the practical realities of life to carry on with in most cases, but I think a lot of people are assessing, what their lifestyle choices are, all of these different things that are part and parcel of what makes you and the life you live more fulfilling. And I think that's an interesting thing. I've seen people doing, everything, going out for walks, runs, getting into training, healthier eating, not drinking, like the things that would have just naturally swept you away and a part maybe of a typical work culture, your day-to-day kind of, just buy this quick thing because I'm busy doing this, and away you go. Now you're taking a bit of time to maybe I'll prepare a meal, I'll do that. So things will become just different priorities, I guess. But let's hope some of that stays. Awesome.
That's right. And look, there's really very few times in a person's career life that you get the opportunity to actually stop. And, I can only, one of the things that I probably haven't mentioned even in some of the articles that I have written around this now, because that was part of my overall strategy, just to sort of inject, that little bit of journey mapping, I guess, on what the experience is. But the exhaustion that I have felt through some of that time, it's almost as if I've been catching up from the 25 years that I've worked. It's almost like this point where I've just gone, oh my goodness, I have an opportunity to process all of that to this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can go on a walk if I want. I can spend time with the kids. I can, I don't have to race out the door every morning. And it's taken me so long, to stop getting up at, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, which, is just part of my genetic makeup. Which is just a bit crazy.
That was great.
I tend to crash by about 8 o'clock at night, though. But yeah, you're right. It's just such a different time, and I've found that the days actually go quite fast, especially when you're reading and when you're writing and when you're getting involved in so many other creative elements that allow thought process to go off in totally different tangents where you like that word I used before, expand yourself outside of that that box of the employment realm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, look, one of the final things I was going to go, we were talking about how the journey's changed your perspective, but I think you've talked quite a bit to that actually. But is there anything kind of specific that you're like as you look forward now, from in respect of kind of like the work you're involved in, the people you're connected to, how you've kind of you're leveraging the people that you've built over time, as you're writing more articles, people relating to that, we've all got common experiences, although we're doing very different things. This common COVID situation is something we can all relate to, and how it's impacting us. And I think the stuff you're talking to is very relevant to that, and the stuff you're learning is very relevant to that in respect of what the kind of psychological and longer term effects are for people and how you can communicate that message. But what is it for you that you're looking as going forward,
Yeah, look, I think, that goal setting that I kind of put in place at the beginning of this journey after the first couple of days of shock had worn off, just going, okay, so what do I need to do? Okay, I need to do A, B, C, D, E, and I've addressed some of these things in some of the articles that I've written. And then, how can I apply, this modern digital selling to my own personal brand? And, I think LinkedIn is a way to future-proof yourself. That social presence, that ability to create that digital footprint for yourself. I consider it to be my business. So I've sort of focused on that, and I've kept my communication up with contacts that I have on there. So, it's become my family, it's become my community. So it's enabled me to feel like I'm still working in so many ways, which is tremendous, because I've still been connected in that way. And I guess one of the goals that I sort of set for myself was that, I was going to be real, I was going to be transparent, and I was going to be aligned with my core values as a person, because, that is how the frame of where I want to go in the future, because I really want to make sure that I'm aligned to an organisation that has those same values. So that was really important for me to be projecting as part of that strategy, and, and what I was sort of putting out there on my business channel, on my LinkedIn channel. And what that has all resulted in, which has been in some ways such a huge and complete surprise, and in other ways, it's just been so heartwarming, sometimes it's brought me to tears, is that there are, regardless of situational effects, if you're willing to adapt and change and grow and look at things a little bit differently, that there are unlimited opportunities out there.
Yeah.
And I think that is the one sort of message that I'm sort of trying to make sure comes across in what I'm sort of talking about. And I'm probably building to that crescendo point as well, as this journey unfolds for me. But, the amount of referrals I've had through my connections through LinkedIn, through people that I've met through, business channels that are on that LinkedIn platform, the amount of job offers that I've had, the amount of just out of the blue opportunities that have been presented to me. And then, as I mentioned earlier, those requests for help, where, it's made me feel like I can be of value, of purpose to somebody, even though, I'm not on a payroll somewhere. This is the foundations of what I'm, projecting forward to, and those foundations, nothing that I have done has been in vain, if that makes sense. You know, this has been my opportunity to really build, regrow, rebirth, rewire, and you know, that has enabled me to see that the future looks bright, and I'm very, very excited about it. And you know, an announcement is pending regarding what's happening next for me, which is very good. But yeah, and I, at no point in time over this process, Stuart, have I actually felt stressed. You know, the first couple of days, it was, you know, the shock, the like, oh my God, how am I going to support my family through this time? You know, how am I going to make ends meet? You know, and obviously government support and, you know, the ability to draw down from superannuation, those things have been quite key for me, obviously. And also just having a little bit of a savings plan prior to all this happening. And that was probably as a result of being a single mum, which, you know, just was something that I'd always put in place. But, you know, just amazing. I'm so excited now about what the future holds, and so glad and grateful for what I've done. So those few moments of doubt and fear at the beginning were very, very short-lived, and then it was just about attacking, you know, not every day, not all the time, and not on a 100% consistent basis, but as much as possible remaining in that mindset of, you know, my growth is my responsibility. My future is my responsibility. I have everything at my fingertips. I say this to my boys. You've got every single thing at your fingertips. If this had happened 35 years ago, I wouldn't have been in the position that I am. Maybe yourself, maybe others. You know, we have this digital channel that can reach almost everyone in the world that has access to digitization. You know, it's unlimited. So that is just, this time period and this time frame has not reduced me in terms of making me think in a narrow perspective. It's actually opened me up. And obviously those elements, you know, with the Sales Tribe impact, you know, with the Science of Wellbeing impact, and just with some other books that I've been reading, you know, has been instrumental in all of that.
That's fantastic. You know, like I'm genuinely buzzed by the concept of everything has this kind of foundation, and what, you know, where some people look at, you know, the platform that you've utilized in an expert way to actually achieve, you know, this kind of mindset and how you're now looking forward. I think it's massively impressive to me. But it kind of, what I wanted to highlight through these kind of conversations was how, as it's, you know, it is that kind of infinite nature of what's available to us, that how we use it, you know, it's just a mechanism. It's not the answer. Do you know what I mean? Like, people look at it and go, how can I turn that into it? And it's not that you have to turn that into it. It's kind of more about you as a person, but it's just an avenue of how you actually reflect yourself in that space. And I think that that's an interesting point to make, because I don't know if necessarily people see the power of it in that respect. And I know that you do. And that's why your story resonated with me so deeply. I thought, you know, as soon as I saw your conversation, I thought, wow, I have to make contact. And you were great enough to have a conversation initially with this, and I'm so happy for that. So I enjoyed it.
Beautiful. You just broke up a little bit.
So look, I guess like that's kind of covered off. Oh, apologies. So no, it's I just say I really appreciate the opportunity of talking to you, because, you know, it just came from that one moment of watching your video and thinking, wow, this is exactly it. This, you know, you were hitting the nail on the head for me as kind of my views of LinkedIn are it's an infinitely powerful tool, but you kind of got to understand yourself first before you really can actually operate it in the right way. And I think once you get that bit nailed, you're away. And I think what you've highlighted today has been exactly that story for me. So thank you again for that.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I mean, this sort of forum and producing those type of videos is, you know, quite confronting, and it's, you know, stepping outside of that comfort zone. And, you know, I really appreciate the opportunity to share this story with you and have another chat with you. It's been great.
No worries. Well, look, I'll just put this up here, because I think if people want to either speak to myself or Mel in relation to anything that we've covered today, then, you know, obviously we're available via the channels of LinkedIn. If you want to connect with us, if you want to just drop us a direct message, whatever it takes, you know, we're available for that conversation. Obviously, Mel's got a specific focus on what she's achieving and what she spoke to today. I come from more of the LinkedIn side of things and how I can develop and grow a business. But ultimately, the stories are so relevant now, and yeah, it's a powerful tool that we should be harnessing as best we can. But Mel, thanks so much. Really appreciate the conversation.
My pleasure. Have a lovely afternoon, Stu. Thanks so much.
Okay, speak to you later. Bye for now.
Bye.